I've only ever truly been in love twice, with a vehicle, that is. We know that cars, vans, lorries are inanimate objects made of steel, glass, rubber, all the rest of it. But for some reason, a particular vehicle can come to mean a lot to us. I'm going to tell you a love story. I'm going to talk about two vehicles that I know I loved, and one which was difficult to love. When I was about 19 or 20, I was able to afford to buy my first own car. A lot of my friends were buying sporty cars or sensible cars. I had always wanted a black London taxi. It was heavy, it was quite slow, it was incredibly noisy. I had the screen taken out, I had a front seat put in so I could have a passenger next to me, and you could get loads of people in there. The oil gauge dripped onto a piece of cardboard that I had on the floor, so I had to drive with my legs wide apart, otherwise my jeans would get covered in oil. That taxi and I hit the road, and boy did we have some adventures. Now these were formative years, the coming of age years, so obviously I was in a band. One occasion I decided we could do an acoustic rehearsal in the back of the taxi. So my friends and I drove into the woods and decided to do a rehearsal. Dark fell, and the taxi sunk into the mud. And when we'd finished our rehearsal, we couldn't get it out. Police Land Rovers had to be brought in to winch us out. The taxi and I went all over the place. I travelled to Scotland in it. I drove in a black cab from Surrey to Scotland. On the way back, I travelled through the Lake District. But there was something else that I want to tell you about. Something I wasn't really originally planning to sort of bring up on How to Love Driving, but at that age, early 20s, I was massively struggling with my sexuality. There was no one that I could tell that I was gay. That car heard it all. Angst, problems, uncertainty and worries. It became a literal safe haven where I could think hard, think out loud. Do you do that? Do you talk to your car about stuff? Let me know. And then the time came when it needed a new engine. And at that point, I couldn't have afforded it or justified it because that would have been worth more than the car's value. It had already done over 250,000 miles. And so I had to make the decision to have it scrapped. I arranged for it to be picked up and taken away while I was out at work. I pulled into the drive, and where the taxi had once been parked was just an empty space. But on the ground, there was a patch of oil. So that was vehicle love affair number one, and I never really thought I'd feel that attached to another car again. In fact, even to this day, if I'm driving in a dream, it's quite often that old black cab. But then came love affair number two. About 10 or 11 years ago, I gave up a really successful business. I had my own pub and it was brilliant. And but all good things come to an end, and it reached the point where really I wasn't going to survive in the pub trade financially for very much longer. The pub had peaked and was going downhill, and it was time to jump before disaster hit. I thought to myself, I'm going to do man and van for a while because I love driving and it would be a way to be freelance and self-employed. So I did all the research and I narrowed it down to what I wanted. I wanted a Mark 6, medium wheelbase, medium height Ford Transit. I wasn't in love with the idea of having a white one, but most of them are, so I thought, I suppose it's going to have to be white. I went to my local friendly garage, here where I live, to ask them whether, if I got one, would they be able to look after it for me, do all the maintenance and the MOTs and all that. And here's the thing. Andrew, who owned the garage, said, look over there. That's a van that a customer got us to do loads of work for. And they didn't want to pay the money, so they signed it over to us. And we don't need it. We're selling it. It was a Mark 6, medium height, medium wheelbase, Ford Transit. In blue. Took it for a spin, fell in love, £2,000 out the cash machine, done, my van. My fabulous, reliable, faithful, fun van. It represented a transition between the old business and working towards something new. The van and I earned a living together for a period of time doing man and van. I packed it up in the end, but I didn't want to get rid of the van, so it just became my vehicle. It never once let me down. The only time that I had to call the AA was when I left the headlights on overnight and flattened the battery. It was such a faithful friend and an absolute joy to drive. I'm sitting in the passenger seat of my own van because look who's driving.
Hi, driving a van.
Anna Dukowski off the telly.
Driving a van.
Is driving my tranny. We've got Annie in the tranny.
I'm loving the van.
Annie in the tranny.
I'm loving the van life.
I feel like this is an advert for Ford Transits. But what happened? Why don't I own it now? Rust. It had eaten so much of the bottom of the Transit that my garage was saying, look, you've got one more year on this MOT that we'll scrape it through on. One more year. And don't take corners too fast because the top of the van is starting to separate from the chassis. That year passed and I took it in. Come on. They didn't even MOT it. They looked at it and said, we ain't going to charge you for looking at it, but it's reached the end of its life. As you will know, Ian, there's a scrapyard just behind this garage. Take it there now. They'll probably give you 200 quid. So, I didn't take it straight to the scrapyard. I took it home. I emptied all my personal stuff out of it. And then I started that engine for the last time and drove the mile up the road to the scrapyard and pulled in. The scrapyard knew I was coming. I'd phoned them. The woman had said on the phone, don't worry, we'll take good care. We'll break it apart gently and its parts will go on to help other vans live. I think she knew how some people can feel about their vans. And so I drove in, parked up, turned the engine off. Last time I'd ever hear that comforting diesel engine. Put it in neutral, pulled the handbrake, took a breath, and burst into tears. Unpack that in the comments. I can take any amount of abuse. Tell me I am a nutter. Or tell me if you've felt the same. Okay, the car I should have loved but struggled to because it didn't love me back. A childhood dream of mine had been to own a 1950s American car. And I bought a 1958 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. Absolutely beautiful. me, it was terrifying to drive. 6-litre V8 engine. When you turned it on, the whole car jolted like that because of the torque. Fiercely powerful. No seatbelts, bench seats, column selector for the automatic gears, of course. And you know what? I'll be totally honest. That Cadillac gave me joy and fear in equal measure. Because one thing it wasn't was reliable. It would run beautifully for a period of time and then it would let me down spectacularly. Let me see if I can think of a few of the things it did to me. Heater matrix blew up and the cabin filled with steam. Brake failure twice. Great in an automatic that weighs nearly 2 tons. Probably the most terrifying, even more terrifying than the brake failure, was a blowout on the front tyre, front near side tyre, on a motorway, 70 miles an hour, and the tyre burst, the car went... Managed to get it to stop on the hard shoulder, by which time it had caught fire. And my little fire extinguisher was like... As it turned out, it wasn't that badly damaged, and it lived another day. In the end, a wise friend of mine said, "That Cadillac is becoming hard for you to enjoy, isn't it?" And that was like permission. Permission to end the relationship. So I sold it. Was I sad to see it go? A little. But I thought, yeah, you and I have had our adventures together. Off you go now. Fly free. It's still going, I believe. I think it's in Brighton somewhere, and I hope, if by some weird chance the current owner of my Cadillac is watching this, I hope it's behaving, and I hope you are loving it, because it is a beautiful machine. Really is. There's someone or something I haven't mentioned. If you've seen any of my other videos, you may be familiar with the good old Chevy, which features in my life now, doing this YouTube adventure. Do I love it? I'm beginning to. Thank you for watching this far in. It was a bit of a different video today. Like and subscribe, because I'm trying to grow this channel, so that would be wonderful. Until next time, drive safely, drive like you mean it. Always enjoy the ride, because that is how to love driving, and I'll see you in the next one.